Hello and welcome. I'm glad that you're here. My name is Anthony Citrolo, and I am the founder of the NYBB Group and the Exit Strategy Lab. Just a brief overview, and I want to introduce my guest as well. My guest today is Jay Hochheiser of Hochheiser and Deutsch, and he's an old friend of mine. Not old, of course, chronologically, but we've known each other a long time. And both of us really have had kind of the same mantra. We work with business owners who are looking at exit and succession planning and strategies and a path toward exiting their family-owned business. And my podcast I've titled Firm Grasp. It's really firm grasp on an empty bag. And I think both of us, our goal is to make sure that that bag is full at the point when someone exits their business, because oftentimes it is one of their largest, if not their largest asset. A lot of folks have really put all their eggs in that basket, and we want to make sure that it is full at the end of the day. Many families, their retirement rests, their money is trapped in the business. I hate to use the word trap, but I think sometimes it is trapped in the business, and it is our job to really help them turn that asset into cash so they can realize the benefits of the years of hard work, the years of dedication, and the years sometimes of just putting all their efforts forward in that family-owned or that privately held business. And our goal here at the podcast, which is Firm Grasp on an Empty Bag, is help owners realize what really makes one business more valuable and maybe perhaps another less. And as I said, I'm excited to have my guest and my good friend, a fellow CEPA, which is Certified Exit Planning Advisor, and a Certified Financial Planner, which is really top in his profession, Jay Hochheiser. Jay is the founder and the CEO of Hochheiser and Deutsch. As I said before, they're located in Melville, but service clients throughout the United States. And you probably have some international ones too, Jay, I would think. Of course, as we have the same mindset. Jay's primary focus really is to really help inspire and guide entrepreneurs and professionals, helping them to protect themselves, helping to protect their families from really life's uncertainties, help them safeguard and grow their wealth, and have the freedom so that what they can do is enjoy life, enjoy what they want to do, and probably have that life after business, especially so that they're not tied to the business. I know, Jay, you know what? I'd like to start, and I welcome you and thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Can you just give us a little background about maybe your start in the business and what your main focus is right now? And then we'll talk about some of the important things that I think you've developed. Jay has developed something called the Entrepreneurial Scorecard, which I find it to be really impactful. But just give us a little background on yourself and how you started and what kind of clients you're focusing on these days.
Sure. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it and welcome everybody. So, yeah, I started in the business at a very young age of 22. I am not as young now, as Anthony mentioned. I'm an old friend, and but all is good. And I, went into insurance and financial planning. I got my certified financial planning designation and then my certified exit planning advisor designation to get the knowledge. And our focus is holistically to help our clients build wealth, but build wealth so you're in a position to distribute that wealth. And that's something that I think is lost in a lot of conversations. People just look at the building, but what about when you go to take it out? How do you distribute it? What are the taxes? What are the effects? And nobody really does that. And that's critical because you're only building it to use it and enjoy it. You're not building it to look on a page and say, oh, that looks nice. You can't go out to dinner on the paper, and you can't go on vacation and travel the world. So our focus is holistically planning, not only building wealth, but how can you distribute that and distribute that in the most tax efficient way. That's a big deal because taxes, we feel, are probably going to be one of the largest expenses people are going to have in retirement. They think about the pain now while they're working, but in retirement, taxes don't go away and you're not making more money to replace it.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting because as we go through a transaction with someone who's selling their business, one of the big key questions that comes up is, how much am I going to net out of this? What is my tax burden? Because as you and I both know, most folks don't really plan. They kind of plan maybe sometimes a little bit too late and sometimes a little just they're short-sighted in terms of that, because I think they're so immersed in their business. My question really is kind of what drew you to kind of look at business owners, especially, what idea, is there an entrepreneurial background that you have, or did you just see a need there?
Well, you know what? I have my own business, and I like interesting, right? So with a business, there's all kinds of planning, like you said, Anthony, that should be done. There's buy sell, there's shareholder agreements, there's children in the business, children not in the business, exiting, and it really is exciting because if it's done the right way, all the families win and the business win. If it's not done the right way, everybody loses, and usually the business loses. So I think it requires a holistic macro, if you will, economic view to look at the big picture and how do you exit and how do you plan for the transition. And the other thing that's a big deal too, and you've been through it and we've talked about it, Anthony, is that what does someone need to get out of the business to live happily ever after? And most people we find today, and I don't care if you're worth 5 million, 10 million, or 50 million, a lot of people have not done their distribution plan and crunch numbers saying, hey, I'm going to have X amount of year in retirement, and when I'm gone, I leave all this money behind, or am I broke at 82? You need to stress test what your model, your retirement income model will look like, and that will dictate what they need out of the business. And that's a big deal because let's say someone wants out and they want to retire and they've had enough. Well, will they get enough for their business to make it work? And if we can figure out what do they need net out of the business, well, that makes it also easier for you to sell it and makes it quicker for them to get that transition they're looking for without all the question marks.
Absolutely. And I find, one thing that most folks don't want to do is they don't really want their lifestyle to be affected after they happen to sell their business, because a lot of folks do live vicariously through the business. A lot of their expenses are written through the business, and sometimes they don't really, understand, what the net impact to them is too. I know you have something called the scorecard, right? The Entrepreneurial Success Scorecard, and I like it because it goes through various steps, and it ultimately comes down to the point where they can exit and kind of have a good assessment of where they're at. Can you just talk to us about that and how that fits into the whole holistic view that you have in terms of working with the business owner?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Anthony. So yeah, everyone's so busy, like you said, they're immersed in their business, they're running their business, they're helping their family, and maybe they get 2 seconds for themselves, so they're not looking at this. So the scorecard is broken down into 6 areas where we like to, and we'll make that available. Anthony will make that available for anyone that wants a scorecard. The first area is increased sales and profitability. What is that like? We do also a lot of pension plans for a lot of companies, and that's usually dictated. It's good because you get a deduction. I mentioned taxes, you'll save on taxes, but we want to know what kind of plan is appropriate, and that's based on how are your sales and profitability. The second area, which is actually a big deal today, is recruiting, rewarding, and retaining key employees. The labor market is rough. You definitely want to, if you have a top person, a key person, you want to make sure they have the right benefit package, that they're not walking across the street. So that's the pension planning used to be about the business owner putting away as much as he can, getting getting a big deduction. Now it's also about what's a good package to keep my people. That's a big deal. The third is business succession, continuity, and exit planning. How prepared are you? What have you, what's your vision? And Anthony, I know I'm preaching to the choir. You don't wake up on Wednesday saying, I want to sell my business on Thursday. That's not the best way to do it. There's some planning that goes in so that they can get more value for their business and things you need to do. And one of the biggest things, and you and I talked about it the other day, is are you building personal wealth? Most people keep reinvesting into the business, which is great, but you also need to build wealth outside the business, because what if you can't sell your business for $50 million? Over the years, we've seen people do it and not do it. And the ones that have built wealth outside of the business have more flexibility to how they sell or what they do or how they exit. Can they transfer it to a child or bring in a partner? So building personal wealth is very important. Number 5 is, there's only 6 of them, but is coordinating the financial, estate, and the business planning. You have to coordinate the whole thing because the taxes and everything else and your children, it's complicated. Not for us, but it's complicated if you don't do it. We got to do it. And the last is to get to a worry-free retirement where you can do what you want, when you want. And that's the goal. But you don't get there without planning, and you don't get there without mapping it all out. And you don't get there without looking at all the big picture and how all these pieces fit in,
Yeah, and it's interesting, and when you talk about pension and the retention of employees, it's remarkable to me how folks don't understand how that really is a critical component, especially given today's employee issues in terms of retaining or even finding employees. You really have to enhance the package, and I think the interesting part is when you look at the big picture, it's it's not a real large cost for the business. The larger cost for the business is really not having the talent that they need and actually having to replace those folks. We've seen so many instances where people have huge recruiting fees. They've gone through employees on a regular basis. I mean, it's just crazy, I know, we had talked about, you had an instance with, I think, an HVAC company, right? We had brothers who were interested in selling, and give us a little backdrop, because I think stories are important. And this is a real life story in terms of what's happened with this one individual group.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the one thing I mentioned on retention for these employees, I had a business coach years ago who said, when you lose an employee, you typically lose whatever their salary was for the year in productivity. So if you're paying someone $80,000 or $100,000, that's going to be your cost to the business. Excuse me. So you want to retain those people. So what happens is I was introduced to a HVAC firm with two brothers. One brother was in the business forever, saved, very conservative in his spending, and built a lot of personal wealth outside of the business. And he was in great shape. And they were talking about getting out and selling the business. The younger brother had been in another industry, came into the business later, also went through a divorce, and definitely lost a lot of his capital that he had built up due to splitting assets for the divorce. And they were looking to sell. And yet, before they could actually come to grips with the transition process, we needed to know, what does that younger brother need to get out of that business that him and his family can live and be comfortable? And we went through that process. And what's great is that got them to the place that they knew what the number was. So then when they get an offer above what that number is going to produce, they're good. And they could do it without reservation. Whereas you don't want to sell that business below what you can afford to live on and go back to work when you're 83 years old. That's not something that, I'm not saying you'll get a good job, but that's not something you're looking for. So you really need to analyze this to make it work and to have you less. Look, the goal is to have less stress, right, Anthony? And we all have so much stress in life. The goal is to get to retirement, be able to live and not have that stress. Absolutely. And without knowing where you're going to be, you can't get there.
Yeah, and we find that on a regular basis. I even routinely have folks who have sold their company who come back to us to look for something else because for a couple of reasons. One, they really don't have the next step in life planned. They really have nothing to do. They've really been in their business for a long time, and their passion really is building business and working there. They're not golfers. They're not. Their family perhaps wasn't a place where they spent a whole lot of time. So it's hard to just kind of pivot and actually do that. And but most of them, it's really financial need, quite frankly. It's not just to just keep themselves occupied. And it's sad in a lot of ways, right? When you think about the fact that they need to do that, they don't have any real personal skill set, so they're good at operating companies, And I think that's good. The other thing, I know you put together the Financial Freedom Scorecard, right?
Yes.
Which I find great because as the fifth item on that is financial freedom. But I'd like to talk about some of the components of that because, the goal for everyone, I think, is personal and financial freedom. So there's some financial part's important, but I think we have realized, and as from being a CEPA, there's really three legs of the stool that we talk about, and one is their personal situation, one is their business situation, and then the wrap around the whole thing is really what their financial situation is, because sometimes they are not coordinated. But if you could talk a little bit about the Financial Freedom Scorecard, and then you have a book that I think we can make available to folks as well, which I think would be useful for those folks who really want to get a little deeper knowledge in terms of what the mindset is and really what kind of the thought process they need to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. The book is called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Achieving Financial Freedom, and anyone that reaches out through the podcast, we'll be happy to send a complimentary copy. It is on Amazon, but our price is complimentary is cheaper So we're
It
happy
certainly
to
is.
present that. And it's about an hour and a half read. It's a short read, and it just touches on a lot of areas. A lot of people say, we always ask what's keeping you up at night, but we also know what should be keeping you up at night, and we get into that. The Financial Freedom Scorecard is really looking holistically, like what's in place. Do you have the proper protection documents, right? Do you have the right liability umbrellas and the right insurance coverages? Because what if we're building wealth and you get sued and you don't have the right umbrella coverage? We're not investing that money for somebody else. It's for you, and your family. Your disability coverages. If a breadwinner is earning and they're in their 40s or 50s, if God forbid they became disabled and couldn't work, what happens? Can their kids still go to college instead of going to Michigan? Are they going to Suffolk Community? I mean, all these things are part of life. Wills and trusts. Wills and trusts are very boring, but very necessary. Even if you don't have a super high net worth, you have minor children. You need documents in place. And as you develop more wealth and you have a business and you have real estate, you need the right kind of legal documents. You need all these protection components so that if something bad happens, you're okay.
And Jay, I got to tell you one thing. I'm amazed at how many businesses where there are partners involved have no buy-sell. And if they do have a buy-sell, there's no coverage on it. So I think when you talk about documentation, and we've seen folks, when, of course, that buy-sell should come into place, that they don't have one. I mean, I don't know if that's one of the things you were talking about, but that's highlighted in my mind almost every engagement we talk about.
Yeah, I would say if I reviewed 10 businesses over the next month and met them for the first time, out of those 10 businesses, I would think about 8 of the 10 do not have an up-to-date valuation and buy-sell agreement and funding. What happens is you start a business and people started in their garage and now they have 5 buildings and 3 warehouses, right? So what does the agreement say? So there was a case I worked on years ago there were 3 partners, 2 majority partners, and the buy-sell agreement had everything going to each partner, right? But over the years, one of the sons for one of the partners was a key cog in that business. Without him, the business wouldn't grow, wouldn't be what it was. Another guy was divorced and had 5 children and had 1 child in the business and other children out of the business and, ex-wives and, and the business was originally valued at $2 million. And eventually they sold for $80 million. So if you have, it's very easy for things to go astray if things are not up to date. So the buy-sell agreement should be updated periodically. There should be a formula in there. We use life insurance a lot of times for the funding, and we want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Our children involved in the business, key cogs in the business, then you don't want to maybe sell all your shares, right? If I have 60% ownership and my partner has 40%, and my son, let's say, is a key, maybe upon my passing, they'll split my shares. Maybe my son would still get some and the other, partner that started. But these things need to be planned out and discussed to be effective, because you don't want someone getting mad, shutting down, opening across the street. You want to keep the business going or be in a position to be sold at the right time on your terms. And if you don't have these set up right, it's a disaster. And most often it's not set up, it's not updated, and things change, right? So
absolutely.
It's a big point, Anthony. And listen, you work your whole life, so many hours of every week, of every month, of every year in your business to generate income, to have a nice life for you and your family. You got to protect it. You got to make sure that it's okay, because if it's not okay, everybody suffers.
Yeah, there's only that one instance where something happens that all of a sudden, you see it kind of go up in smoke, so to speak, and we had a situation where we had 3 brothers who were in another HVAC company. I don't know if it's HVAC specific, right? But there were 2 brothers started the business, and they had a buy-sell agreement that was in place, insured and everything. And when they took the younger brother in, they never updated it. So now the 3 of them came to us. Now this is 20 years after they started and everything, and they basically had no coverage essentially when the 3 of them were there, and they were not on the same page. It was interesting how the older brother's like, I'm 62 years old, I want to retire. So the 2 younger brothers, one was 52 and the other was 46. They go, really? It's amazing. So, not only did they not have planning, but they tried to start the business right. But see, somehow people lose focus. They're so busy in the day in, day out part. We've had guys who had, I have a buy-sell agreement. And you find out, they had one written back many, many years ago, but the insurance hasn't been kept up and it has not been updated. They had a valuation when they first started, and that was the only valuation they ever had. And essentially, what happens is people can't even track back. They don't even remember in terms of what happened. So it becomes a real mess. God forbid that has to be, exercised, right? Or they have to, it really becomes an important factor.
Yeah, and I want to make a quick point about family, because a lot of family businesses, the brothers say, hey, if something happens to my brother, I'll take care of his family, right? And that's what you'd want. That's where your heart is. But I will tell you, I make the case for this. If it's family business, it's more important to have this stuff set up, because what if now you lose your brother and you hire someone who doesn't do the same job your brother did, right? And the business suffers and the business starts going down, right? And now you don't have the revenue to support your family. And you said, oh, I'm going to take care of my brother's family. And it implodes. So I would tell you, if it's a family business, even more important to have everything set up perfectly so that you can do the right thing without bankrupting the company or your own personal financials. And there's a lot of guilt. It's your family. Your brother's not here. It's his family. It's your heart and soul. So I would tell you that those cases, people think, oh, I don't need it. You need it more because you want to make sure the right thing is done.
Sure. And you know what? And there's been, as much as you love your family, there's something about working with them every day that somehow doesn't seem to always work properly. And we've had a lot of situations where, man, I'll tell you, they've worked together for many years, but there's no relationship outside of that. And if one actually had to take care of the other, it may be problematic. In fact, a lot of times they can't wait to get away from each other. So I think your points are very well taken. And our goal here really is just to help people plan. We really, I think, they have this great asset. We want to make sure that it doesn't really go down the drain on them. I mean, and in a lot of cases, they really do need the money to actually retire and exit. So I think your points are great and well taken. I had another question. So you've had a real good success story in terms of growing your business. I mean, I admire you. You have a great practice there. And I think it's because you're so passionate and also you're a smart guy. I mean, I think that helps, right? You gotta have some knowledge behind you. But, what give us a couple of your success. Like, how have you become successful? What have you done that you think has worked? And if you think about a few things that didn't work, I'd be curious too, because, folks want to know when you see people who have done very well. And I think one of the things I know about Jay is he's always done the right thing. So, and I think that's key. And in an industry where, look, there are a lot of folks who claim to be financial advisors, financial planners. Some are very good, and I think you have, created kind of a knowledge base, I think, that has been able to attract people who are business owners. But I'm just curious in terms of, you look at it from retrospect for a few years that you've been in business, what do you think some of the success points are?
Well, I think one of the big deals is from my working in my business, working on the business. And this goes for every business, right? I take time out to work on the business, not always in the, right? So when I'm working with the clients, we're working in it, we're planning, we're talking. But I believe every business owner needs to work on the business. So you step away and you plan. So I've created some unique financial planning processes that we take our clients through, with the Entrepreneurial Success Blueprint, which is for our business owner clients, and the Financial Freedom Experience, which is an individual process. And here we go everything soup to nuts to discuss and talk about and not leave anything unturned. Not that everything needs to be addressed, but we want to make sure everything is solid. So I have been a very big proponent of business coaching. In fact, I'm actually going today to Chicago. I used to go to Chicago once a quarter for a day. And I'm in a room with 30 or 40 entrepreneurs talking about how do we provide more value for our clients? How do we do better? How do we have a quality of life at the same time? It's not
it's interesting, Jay. One quick thing, like, people see you as a successful guy. They go, what does he need coaching for, right? He should be doing the coaching, right? So, I mean, your mindset about that is such that there could always be, then you can learn from someone else. I mean, give me an idea what your mindset is there, because I think I'm always interested in coaching. And I think, some people maybe get to a point where they think they know it all, and it's probably not a good mindset.
Yeah, so I have a very good friend who's a CPA who does. We have some mutual clients. He's like, Jay, you could teach that stuff, and it's not even that. I've been in this particular program for over 15 years. It's getting away from working in it to working on it, thinking clearly, right? When you have cases you're working on and things, you're not thinking about planning and providing more value and how to do things better in your process because you're in the process. So I think it's that. And then with this particular system, you end up pairing off and doing these exercises that you think, you write down, and you talk with other entrepreneurs and other businesses, and you get ideas. And I think that the number one thing, it's like anything else, Anthony, there's like business owners need to plan for all this stuff. And we as business owners also need to plan for how can we do business better, smarter, more efficiently, more enjoyable. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. And you're right, I am passionate. I love what I do. But I also want to make it more fun and make it better. So I think the one thing that I would encourage people to do is spend some time working on your business, not always in it. Like even if it's once you take half a day every other month, right? You take a Friday or do something and look at what's working, what's not working, what could you improve, how would you improve it? And I think, Anthony, that's been a very big factor in our success. I wouldn't have written the book probably without going to coach and being thought that I should write a book. I wouldn't have done these scorecards that engage people.
No, it's absolutely. It's interesting you say it because I have two partners, and we've always worked in the business pretty well. And we said, gee, how do we get to the next level? How do we organize this thing in a way where we can actually grow it as opposed to being, a worker bees? And we've gone through a whole EOS process, and we take a day pretty much every month where we're sequestered, so to speak, with a coach, and we've worked on the structure of the business and worked, as you say, not in the business but on the business, and now we've rolled it out to the team, and it's a real visible type of initiative that, number one, of course, you're investing money, right, and you're investing time, but also it really sends the right message to folks out there that you're really looking to kind of do it right. And I think folks like yourself who realize that there are people who you can learn from are probably the thing I like about what you do is because you do that, then you have to be a good listener. And I think, being a good listener probably helps you with your clients, and also somebody who can actually, listen to a coach and kind of take some instruction tend to be better advisors, I think, because I think they listen a little better too.
Yeah, you have to listen. If you don't listen, what do they say? You're born with two ears and one mouth. And
absolutely.
And I tend to talk on a little bit more than I would. I'm a long-winded, but I don't mean I am, but I do. You have to listen. You have to understand. Who is it that said listen to understand? And that's a big deal. Because people say, yeah, I'm listening, but are you understanding?
Mm-hmm.
I have a woman I met recently who husband passed away. She sold a nice piece of real estate. And I asked risk profile question. She wants no risk. I get it. I listened. I understand. So recommendations are based on how she's going to be comfortable. You have to understand. People don't listen today. They don't understand. And that is a big deal. And the one thing I want to mention on the looking at the business, it's like the guy is cutting down trees in the forest, right? He's been cutting down trees for a while. Someone stops and says, why don't you sharpen your axe? He's like, no, I don't have time. I got to chop down all these trees.
Yeah, I get it. We've got a couple of minutes left. So what I want to do is, before I just give people some instruction in terms of how to get a copy of the book and how to get in contact with you, I just want to give you a chance to kind of sum up, what you think maybe are the most salient and most important points for especially our audience being business owners to think about, as a takeaway.
So I would, as a takeaway, I would do, and we'll send it, the Entrepreneurial Success Scorecard. And if you go to our website, www.hdci.biz, hdci.biz, you can get the scorecards. The scorecard takes 90 seconds. I would do those scorecards. I would clearly and see if something pops out that you're scoring low, deal with it, right? And you could call me. I'm happy to have a conversation with all of you or any of you. It's all good. Sure. I love talking about how to help people and help business. And then also you can, on the website too, you can request a copy of the book. You can email us. My email is jayh@hdci.biz. Phone number is 516-662. I'm sorry, I'll give you the office, 516-677-6208. Take time out and look at this. You spend so many hours in your business working hard. Take a little time out to look at the big picture and plan it out, because you'll be better for it, your family will be better for it, and your business will definitely be better for it.
Sure. I think that's great. Great information. And I did read The Entrepreneur's Guide to Achieving Financial Freedom. I thought it was a great read, an easy read, which is good for me. You know, I lose attention pretty quickly, but I think it's got all the points that, you know, that the entrepreneur really has to understand. And sometimes I think they don't go into business thinking about, maybe they think about financial freedom, but I think they maybe lose their way a little bit, you know, in terms of as they're going through that whole thing. Like, and we tell folks, look, when you're looking to plan the exit of your business, we say, try to plan it when you start the business. And you'll have people who look at you like, oh, how am I ever going to do that? And we go, well, you know what, you got to have a goal in mind. If you don't really have a goal in mind, and I learned this from, we're going through the whole EOS process, you know, with 30-day goals and 60-day goals. I thought it was a little bit insane sometimes, right, in terms of the planning. But then I started understanding that, you know, if you don't start out the right way, you don't finish the right way. And I think that's important. I look at athletes like that too.
Yeah, you remember one of the great books by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said you begin with the end in mind.
Absolutely.
And that's true of any kind of planning, any kind of business, any kind of personal planning. What do you want it to look like? And then you can build a plan and get there, you know?
Absolutely. So, hey, we've come to the end of our show, and I wanted to thank Jay Hochheiser at Hochheiser and Deutsch for being my special guest today. And that's jh@hdci.biz. You can get Jay 516-677-6208. And, you know, you can get us here at the NYBB Group, and just look at the NYBBgroup.com. You can find my contact information. And we just try to bring you important guests like Jay who have a message and really can help our family-owned businesses and our people, because, you know, as I say, they have you know, perhaps a bag full of cash that could be available in their business, and we don't want to end up really, as we say, with a firm grasp on an empty bag. So I think that's important. And Jay, thanks again. Listen, have a safe trip. I know you're heading to Chicago for your coaching, and I'll see you when you get back. Everyone, thanks, and have a great day.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.